Hey, my friends, I'm so glad that you're with me here on another episode of the Thriving Christian Artist Podcast. Super excited to have a fellow author and just great creative guy, brand new friend for me, Bert Ballou, who is here. Bert, thanks so much, man, for being on the podcast.
Thank you, sir. I'm thrilled. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have the best life, I think, getting to write and do all these wonderful creative things, not only that I know inspire you, but also inspire young people around the world. So for those folks that are just kind of getting to know who you are and what you do, give us the thumbnail sketch, and then we'll kind of jump into a little bit of your backstory.
Sure. I'm a fourth or fifth generation Okie. I've grown up in Oklahoma. Right now I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but I grew up on a farm down by a small town in southwest Oklahoma called Medicine Park, right next to the Wichita Mountains Wildlife Refuge. So beautiful. It gets hot in the summertime, but it is beautiful down there. Lots of small mountains. Some people would probably call them hills. They're probably not big enough to be mountains, but that's what I grew up with. So
that's wonderful. And when did you start writing?
I started writing, I guess I could say in high school, because I was on our newspaper staff at Elgin High School. Go War Owls. So that's when I first started writing, and I realized I might have a love for this. And of course, in college, you write papers from day one to the day after you graduate. I don't think anybody gets all of their thesis and reports turned in before graduation. And then I started pursuing writing, as more than just a hobby. I think it was 2008. This is going to sound a little crazy, but it was Christmas time of 2008, and I had watched the movie Shrek. About the ogre with Mike Myers, the ogre, the donkey, the princess, and laughed at all the same spots because I'd already seen it 30 or 40 times. But I had gone to bed that night, and I had just turned out the light and was getting ready, for a good sleep. And it just hit me, i.e. God gave me the message or the idea to write a children's story about Passion Week, about Palm Sunday, but through the eyes of the donkey, the little donkey foal that Jesus rode into Jerusalem. In a biblical sense, whenever somebody thinks about the donkey and Mary, they usually think of the journey to Bethlehem. And if they want to go way back to the Old Testament, it's Balaam and Balak, in the story of the donkey there. So I thought it would be a neat twist to tell the story of Palm Sunday, since everybody was so familiar with the Nativity story, that it would be a neat twist to write about Palm Sunday with the donkey as the main character.
Now, had you ever done anything for kids before, or was this kind of like a totally out of left field thing for you? Like, God, what?
This was pretty much left field. I mean, I come from a big family, and, I was always the uncle that got to babysit, or, to watch the kids, which was fine as long as I didn't have to change a diaper.
Exactly.
That was my cutoff. I was like, look, I will play with your kid and wear them out, so that they go right to sleep when you get home. But diapers, if I have to change a diaper, if they get sick, it's game over.
I love that.
But that's as far as professionally writing. So that was the first. And boy, I got a crash course in writing and editing and sentence placement and construction and all the things you forget about diagramming sentences in high school English. So I got a quick crash course on all of that. So
wow. So now
that's when it started.
So from start to finish, how long did it take you to do that first book?
That one took about 30 minutes, to write out the story, but then the editing process and all of that took about 6 months.
Wow.
That took about 6. And that was just a little, 16-page picture book with a paragraph of text. on each
And of course,
page.
you had to find an illustrator for that as well, I guess. Right?
Absolutely, yes.
A whole nother issue.
Absolutely,
Right?
yes, for sure.
So you get your first book out there. I think a lot of people, when they get their first book out there, they think that, oh, I'm never going to have to work again. It's going to be great. And the millions of dollars are going to come in. I'm going to go all over the world, all this and New York Times. And I mean, so what was the reality of that? And I know that you've obviously kept writing lots of other books and everything, but I mean, what was that process like for you? Because I think a lot of people have different ideas of what that's going to be like for them.
Well, I bought a very expensive pair of sunglasses to hide my identity when I went out in public. And then I realized that was waste. That was a wasted. No, I'm kidding. I'm just joking. Other than hearing oh, that's great, you wrote a book, and then they go on, I'm like, no, wait a minute. I wrote a book. I don't know that they quite understood it, because I didn't expect to be like C.S. Lewis status or J.K. Rowling status right away. But that's certainly a goal. But sure. They were like, oh, that's cute, you wrote a book. I'm like, well, it's a little bit more than cute. I stayed up late and I lost sleep, and I paid to have somebody illustrate it, and I paid to have somebody print it up for me. And that's kind of like when you're in a play in college, or community theater, or even like an extra in a movie set. They're like, oh, that's cute, well, how did your little play go? And you're like, it's more than that. It's more.
So how did you get one book under your belt, and I know you have a number of things, you got a brand new book out now. Right. How did that obviously spurred something in you to say, I've got more to say here. I'm seeing some great response maybe from my readers. I want to, I know that you really feel passionately about the message that you can help to portray to young people through the books that you're writing primarily for them. So how did all that begin to unfold? Because you're on such a journey now of prolific writing for this genre.
Right. I think, like a lot of artists, across the whole spectrum, they have something to say. And in a way, I feel like that I've been picked by God, through these books to say, hey, I want you to help me get this message out. The world of children's literature and kids literature and young adult literature is so full of I don't know if anti-God would be the right word, but they certainly don't acknowledge Christianity or religion. There's the whole Harry Potter mega universe, which she's brilliant. Sure. I don't know how many people out there have actually gone through the trouble to read the books instead of just watching the movie when there's a Harry Potter marathon on cable. But if you actually read the books, she was a genius in creating this whole other world. But there's no mention of God or Christian themes. There's plenty of I guess you could say witchcraft and wizardry and right. And some other dark elements, but there's nothing supportive or obviously supportive of the Christian faith. The same thing with the Percy Jackson series. Again, the dude is brilliant, and I hope I get to meet him someday. But you can talk about Greek gods and Roman gods and Norse gods and Egyptian gods and goddesses, but there's a bigger one out there. There's right. A bigger one out there. All of those combined, don't even come close to the toenail of this great God that we serve. And there's no mention whatsoever. Yeah. But again, and those are brilliant people, and I would flatter myself to ever think that I would be considered, in that same. But gosh, there's a big God out there that we serve.
Absolutely. I'm thinking back when I wrote my first book, Unlocking the Art of the Artist. I was on a interview show up in Chicago, speaking at a conference. This radio show picked me up and everything, and Christian radio station, went all over the world. It was a big deal. It was one of my first big interviews. And the guy comes on, he's like, today we have Matt and Tommy with us, blah, 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 blah. He's like, Matt, you work with Christian artists, tell us, Matt, why is so much Christian art so bad? And that was the question. And it was like crickets, and I was like, whoa, oh my gosh, what do I even say? But I wanted to ask you because, I think books, movies, so much Christian oriented work out there gets such a bad rap for, not being as good as things that we see in the secular world. And I know that so many artists like yourself, authors like yourself, are really doing incredible work out there. But I know there can be this sort of stigma and limiting factor around being, quote unquote, in the Christian market and that sort of thing. So what are you doing internally, I think, to handle that, to combat that, to also get your work out in a wider market where it can be respected, not just quote unquote as Christian, work, but also as just really, really great literature?
Yeah, that's a tough predicament I feel like for a lot of Christian artists, again, recording artists, authors, painters, visual graphics, whatever the spectrum. This might sound a little bit cynical, but a lot of it has to do with money. You look at the budget for like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe movie, that came out in 2005 or 2006. Budget was like 120 million or 150 million. You're thinking, if I had that kind of budget, every household in United States and probably 2 provinces in Canada would have a copy of this book. I would be more than happy to give it away. But for somebody starting out, or say for maybe like a thriving Christian artist, name plug, a lot of it has to do with, you've got the time, you've got the energy, but you have to have some financial backing to get it, and it's kind of a catch-22. Well, maybe I'll read your book. Let me ask my friends if any of them have read it first. Well, unless they bought it directly from me, they probably didn't, because we're just starting out. We are just starting out. 2, there is I feel like there's a spiritual force descending on this nation. I don't want to get too heavy, into, we're all doomed, but there is. You look at Hollywood, you look at Los Angeles, New York City, some of the entertainment capitals of the world or of the United States, and they're not too savvy on Christian messaging and Christian artists right now.
Right.
Unless you're an Amy Grant or maybe a Toby Mac, even some of the, I guess, the A-list celebrities, when you hear them thank Jesus or thank God on an awards show, you hear boos. You hear boos from the audience, and that's just heartbreaking.
Yeah. So. Well, I think, we're starting to realize there is, and businesses are starting to realize, artists are starting to realize there's a whole untapped market out there of Christian audiences and other people that are doing really great work that want the kind of content that you're providing. And it's just a matter of finding that and getting out in front of that audience. And as we know, how the Lord does it with divine appointments and those supernatural interruptions and those crossing of paths that shouldn't have happened in the natural, but do to set us up for success. So I love, we're all on that path. I think that's what so much of this podcast is about, is helping people to realize that that's how the kingdom works. And I know that you are, as you're creating these incredible books that are becoming an alternative, for kids, what's your real hope, I think, for maybe a teenager? Like I know the latest book you just wrote was for teens. What's your hope as a teenager to pick that up, a 14-year-old guy or gal, and read this book? What are you hoping they're gonna get, realize, begin to see differently as they read your work?
Well, I would say, first of all, as an author or an artist, I want them to be entertained. I want them to be moved. And then I want them to maybe say, hey, mom, dad, aunts, uncles, I just read this book and I have some questions about it. What is an angel? What is the scripture of Luke 10:19? What does that mean? Because I don't quite understand it all. And then I hope it starts conversations and starts dialogues, with kids and parents, or kids, guardians, adults, whoever, or even each other. They talk about it during lunch at school, or they like I may have done in high school. They put a book in front of their textbook, and hold it up so the teacher thinks they're looking at the textbook, but they're actually reading my book that's hidden inside of it. Something like that. And then in this new book, this Andy Pershing and the Seven Wonders Warriors, that just came out, there are a lot of current events, that maybe kids, teenagers, and even, parents may not be aware of. A lot of current events that you hear about on cable news, on regular news, but you may not get it on your social media feed.
Yeah.
So it will just spark an awareness, of what's going on around them, start a dialogue with their friends, the adults in their lives, and then eventually, lead them to a relationship with Christ.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
No pressure, right?
I know, right. Lastly, I would love to just kind of ask you about your journey, as you're starting, you're really kind of in the thick now of writing, and creating one. I'm sure you've got, like all of us, a million different ideas of new projects that are going to be out there. You're not doing this.
That's a slow day. A million ideas is a slow day for you and for me, probably both.
That's right. You're not doing this though as a 20-year-old young man now. You're, like all of us in middle age and just walking on with the Lord and that sort of thing. How do you think you're approaching this, the undertaking that you're doing in writing and having lots of different projects in this season of your life, as opposed to, 25, 30 years ago?
Right. It would have been nice, to have this idea and this motivation, when you're 20 or 25, but the Lord's timing is perfect. We may not understand it. I never thought, I am very slowly approaching my mid 50s. I never thought, when I was 25 or 30, that this would be my path.
Sure.
As an adult, but you just follow the guidance, of the Lord that He's set before you. And just, it is, I guess I would say it's never too late. People will say, well, I thought about going to law school, but I'm 40 and I'll be 46, when I'm done and I can finally start practicing law. And I'm like, well, that's true. But guess what, buddy? You're going to be 46 regardless, and then you're going to be 47. And then, so, that's a great
way. I've never heard anybody say it. That's a great way to say that. You're going to be 46 regardless. You might as well get there and be doing things that you love, right? I mean, that's
right.
That's
right.
So good.
Yeah. And especially as you get older, I don't know if you get wiser or more mature, but your perspective, it just changes.
Yeah.
You do become more aware of things around you and what you're doing and what you wanted to do and what you haven't done yet. So yeah, that becomes a driving force. It did for me. So yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think all of us, your heart begins to turn to legacy. What am I leaving, and what impact am I having, and all of that.
Agreed. So,
yeah,
exactly.
Well, Bert, I love it, man. You're having an impact. You're leaving a legacy, and it's great to hear a little more of your story, kind of what's behind, in between the pages, if you will, of what you're doing. I know that folks are going to want to connect with you, buy the books, get the newest book that's out there, and whether for themselves or kids or grandkids or that sort of thing. So where is the best place that they can connect with you?
Well, we're just getting started. But right now they can go to my Facebook page, which is just simply Bert Ballou on Facebook, BertBallou. It's also available through my publisher's website, which is Highbridge Media,
Great.
highbridgemedia.com, and they have a bookstore. They have a bookstore tab. You just click on that. And right now, that's it. You know,
Awesome.
the book just came out this past Monday, May 2nd. Or as I would explain to people, that's 5-2, because 5 plus 2 is 7, as in 7 Wondrous Warriors.
Love it.
So,
Love it.
So, but we're going to get, you know, we'll get the Instagram, we'll get the website, we will get all of that set up, because, buddy, I've got 6 more books to write.
That's right. Come on. I love it. Bert, thank you, man. It's a pleasure having you on today. And guys, you can get the links to Bert's Facebook, as well as the link to buy the book from the publisher right here in the show notes in the description. So be sure to click that. And Bert, thanks again, man, for being on. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, sir. I've had a great time. Thanks.